I want to first start off by talking about the artwork in this release. Now, some of the artwork is drawn by me, and then some of the artwork is licensed. And so what that sort of means is we pay people to design these products. We kind of pay for their artwork. Now, there can be other companies in this world who also use this sort of artwork, but we kind of curated it for these different stamp sets. Some of it we've taken sort of ideas and redrawn it a little bit. So from now on, from this release on, you're gonna also see artwork mixed in that's not drawn by me. I know for this whole time since I've had my line, for the 4 years with Ranger, which is super exciting, I've drawn my products. And so I've really learned from the start kind of how to draw and kind of definitely grown from where we started at the beginning. But there's always been some sort of ideas and stamps that I couldn't necessarily draw myself, but I still wanted to create. And I also love experimenting with different styles of products, different designs of stamps. And so that's where this really comes in, to have the licensing of this artwork. And sometimes it's even like we'll license a sort of idea and then I'll redraw it. So it can be a starting off place, it can be the whole stamp set, but really there are some talented artists that designed some of the products in this release as well. All right, guys, so now that we've kind of discussed that and talked about the amazing artwork in this release, let's turn on my work surface and let's get right into revealing the products. All right, you guys, this is the fall 2022 release. There are 4 different clear stamp sets and there is 1 background stamp. And you guys, I am so excited about these. All right, so let me quickly start off by jumping into the stamps, and then I'm going to talk about the examples that I've created, and then we're going to get to crafting a little bit. All right, so for this first stamp set, this one is called Happy Fall. I absolutely love this one. I feel like I haven't had a set that just screams fall yet, and so this was the one. These images are quite large. These are 6x9 photopolymer stamps, so most of these are going to fill a card base really nicely and give you such a great focal point image. How cute is that? I love the little raccoon that is on top of that pumpkin there. We've got a truck with little pumpkins in it, and then a barrel with the pumpkins as well. And then we have some of these larger pumpkin images and some solid ones to fill them in. I love the solid images, and you're going to see them throughout these different sets because it really makes it easy to color these images in and shade them using ink pads. So I love that opportunity. And then of course, some amazing sentiments. I love this one, sending pumpkin spice and everything nice. Happy fall, y'all. This one's a great one. You are such a blessing to me. That can work for Thanksgiving or for kind of a friendship card and things like that. All right, how are you guys feeling about this stamp set? I personally love it. It was kind of a different style, and so I redrew it in this sort of Simon Hurley create style, and I love the different artwork in here. All right, you guys. Moving into the next stamp set. This one might be a fan favorite. I sent them out to all of the designers that we wanted to work with, and most of the designers chose this monsters set. This one is called Mythical Monsters. And this is a great example of something that I really couldn't draw on my own, but like just amazing artwork that I really wanted to work with on my cards. I am a huge fan of Halloween stamp sets, but I'm a fan of making them sort of cutesy. Halloween kind of scares me if you get into like the scary things on stamp sets. And so like having these cute little critters to work with is just one of my favorite things to create with Halloween cards. And you guys will also see throughout this live, it's really important to me to not only have this sort of more seasonal things like that pumpkin set, but then also a set like this where it's going to be kind of seasonal if you think about it as Halloween, but you'll see in so many of the samples that this really is an all year round stamp set, and you guys are going to see me creating with this a lot. You guys are already loving it. There are just so many adorable little monsters. They all have their own kind of personality and charm to them, which I really love. It's drawn in a more sketchy style. And then each one of these I've paired up with a sentiment that I thought goes along with the stamp. So I love you look beautiful. I think you're cool. That's just hilarious to me. I only have eyes for you to say cheese. I thought you could put this guy inside a little like photo booth or one of those little Polaroids. I think that would be so fun. Sending big monster hugs. I'm only here for the candy. One of my favorites. Totally me. You make me smile. Hope your birthday is scary good. Happy Halloween. So you can see there's other sentiments in here that don't necessarily just have to go with Halloween. and you'll totally see this being used all year long and all of the amazing creativity you can have with it. It really is so much fun. All right, and then going into some sets that aren't necessarily seasonal at all, but just some great basics. So this one is called Friendship Florals. I love the two large flowers in this set. You have this sort of flower cluster at the bottom, and then this larger floral. And then you have all of the pieces that are solid to fill it in. So all of these pieces down here will fill in this image, and then the pieces up here will stamp and fill in this one. Again, these florals can really be used all year long. There's not necessarily a certain type of floral I always draw. Sometimes I'll like go to different places and I'll take pictures of flowers in real life that I see. And so sometimes like a flower would be inspired by a real life picture that I took, and then I'll just draw it. So I never really know exactly what kind of flower it is necessarily, but just kind of, you'll see again in the samples, having the fun and creativity of coloring them how you like for whatever season you like is really important to me. And then while I was doing this set, I was on the phone with my friend and I was like, hey bestie. And so that ended up in the set. And then we were like, you know what, we need to make just a total friendship set. So I love these bold sentiments that are a little bit bigger. And then of course you have some smaller ones, like I may not always be there with you, but I'll always be there for you. You're such a blessing to have you in my life. Different things like that. We really wanted a set that was just perfect for friendship. And so the sentiments are really great to kind of go along with the style of these flowers as well. I love them. This one might be one of my favorites. All right. And then last but not least, we have Spread Your Wings. I love this guy as well. It has these two large birds on a branch, which really easily, again, fills up an A2 size card. And then for this one, I included the solid images for both of the birds so that you can stamp those in and easily color them. I'll share that later in today's live stream. You also have two little hummingbirds. I wanted to make them kind of facing each other so that if you wanted to put them on a card like that, you totally could. I love those two. And then also, I think this one is a magnolia. I think I know what that one is. It's a magnolia, and then we have a large floral that can go along and stamp inside of there. So again, lots of the solid images to go in and color those in. I think those are really great. They're kind of game-changing for me, because if I don't want to go in and do all of the detailed coloring, the stamping is super simple to get great color inside of these images. And again, the sentiments in here: have a beautiful day, I'll always be here for you, and then lots of great sentiments to go along with kind of the birds. Sending smiles across the miles, spread your wings and you'll fly, hope your birthday is tweet, you make my heart flutter. There's a lot of great ones inside of this set. All right, now on to the last stamp. You guys are gonna go nuts for this one. If you need to leave the live and order it, I understand, because I don't know how long it's gonna stay. I've shared this on Instagram yesterday and a sneak peek, and everyone was going nuts about this stamp already. It's one of my favorites. It's called Plaid Builder, and when you guys see how this one works, I think you're gonna go crazy about it. So this is sort of reminding me of the pinstripe background stamp that we've created. So even after today's live stream, if you buy this and you love the look of it, be sure to check out the pinstripes background. This one has the same concept. There's lots of peel aparts in this design, and you can stamp the stripes separately and get a great look from it. This one kind of gives me summer vibes. I love the pinstripes, stamping those in bright colors. Now, with this plaid background stamp, let's talk about it a little bit. So you get a lot of different stripes in here. Check this out. So when you flip the stamp over, I'm going to kind of turn it here. You're going to see that most of these are peel aparts. When you get your stamp, they're going to be connected by little tiny notches like that, and you can just peel them out. You're not ruining anything, you're just separating the stamp from manufacturing. And then I keep mine on the acetate sheet that it comes on. I just cut right around it, around the stamp. And that way, this stamp is all held together by this acetate sheet. It keeps it nice and sturdy, and usually whenever I stamp a stamp like this, I like to ink it up and then I'll press my cardstock into it. So that's how I use the stamp without kind of peeling it all apart. But if you want to, there's a bunch of different little stripes in here. Most of them are individual. Some of them have 3 stripes in one. Some of them have 2 stripes. And the awesome part is you can build your own patterns with these peel apart stamps. And then once you're done using the peel apart, all you need to do is just fit it right back in like this, give it a good press, And if you still need kind of help putting it in, just kind of tip it like this and it'll fit right back into place by itself. All right, now let's talk about the stripes more in depth. So there is solid stripes in a couple of different depths, and you'll see I spread the stripes across the stamp so you get a variety if it's just sitting like this. That way, if you want to stamp the stamp just as a background, you totally could and make it a plaid. You also have these striped stamps. Let's focus here, there we go. These striped ones, and again, in a couple of different varied widths across the stamp. And then you have this really cool looking one. It's gonna be hard to get up in the camera. It's sort of a checkerboard stripe. It looks a little bit woven. It looks kind of like a halftone. When you stamp it, it's gonna be a little bit lighter because it's almost all these little different dots making up that stripe. And again, it's in a couple of different depths across the background stamp. You totally could number these. That's a great idea. Elizabeth in the comments just said that she's totally numbering this stamp. So if you want to take this out and number each one of the stripes, that's a great idea. But I wanted the variation of the stripes. I wanted the different thicknesses. I wanted the different textures. And let me actually share. I was in my room and I have this pillow that's on my bed. And this is kind of woven. So you're gonna see like with these stripes, you're gonna see all of the different variation of that weaving. And I was like, how do I get that to transfer in a stamp? Like, how do I get that texture and that look that I want of this sort of plaid design? So it's always fun to kind of show you guys what inspires the different stamps. And so that was what inspired me to make that kind of checkered pattern and these sort of stripes in here and mix it with the solids to make sure that you get all different types and variations to work with. All right, so let me share all of the examples and then I'll get back into the stamp because we're gonna share really how to stamp with it and kind of demonstrate with it. But it's one of my favorite stamps we've ever created in the line. There's just so much versatility to it. All right, now let's get into samples. So starting off with the first stamp set, of course, the Pumpkin Happy Fall Y'all set. I love this one. I used the Plaid Builder stamp. I created this sort of fall plaid, and again, changing up the colors is going to really change the design for what season you're using it for. Now, I crisscrossed these and kind of created my own design, and the really awesome part is when you peel these out, you can then use each stripe with a different color. So I used a dark gray, this one's called Shady, then I used Guppy, and to finish it off, I used Cookie Dough to create this really beautiful fall-looking plaid. I love it, and then I stamped some of the pumpkins, filled them in with the solid stamps and some inks, and then stamped a nice sentiment, and that finishes it off really nicely. The plaid to me is just such a sophisticated stamp, and you can create some really beautiful patterns with it. All right, next let's jump into this one. I love it. So here I used those pumpkins again, but in the background I stamped all of the solid pumpkins out to create sort of a pattern paper type look. And I think I used Roar Lunar Paste, so you also get that shine against the black cardstock, which I am just obsessed with. And then of course I stamped down the pumpkins, stamped them in their colors of inks as well, so you can see just how easy it is to stamp and color those in. And that finished it off. But check out that lunar paste in the background. So like totally go nuts with stamping the different pumpkins, creating your own backgrounds with them. There's a lot you can do with it. And I think that lunar paste just brings it to life against the black cardstock. All right. Next we have this one. Here I used the circle cut stamping foam, and I actually used it with a placemat. So this is just kind of a woven placemat. I got it from Walmart in case you're interested. You want to go pick it up to use with your stamping foam because you can use it with any texture and create such a beautiful background. And so here I used the outside portion of the stamping foam circle to leave the inside white, and then I colored this little raccoon on the pumpkin, and I think it's just so adorable. He's so cute on top of there. And then I just finished it off with the "You are such a blessing to me" sentiment. But check out that background. You really get so much texture from that stamping foam, so don't underestimate the stamping foam background. I think that placemat is just super cool for getting that texture and giving it that kind of woven and fall look. I love it. All right, Next, I used the inside piece of the stamping foam, the circle cut stamping foam, and I again used that placemat to create sort of a textured background. I wanted it to look kind of like a sky there. So once I did that, I then stamped down the truck and colored this guy in. So you can really have fun coloring with this set. There's a lot of big images with some open spaces. So I went in with my Simon Hurley Create inks and watercolored those in, and I love it. Yes, yeah, I fussy cut all these images. So there is a nice border around them, and you get that great image. All right. Stamping foam is, Julie, that is such a great question. You can find it on my product page at Ranger. Stamping foam, you heat it, and then you can press it into any texture, and it creates a stamp out of it. And there's lots of videos on my channel sharing stamping foam. I might even share it in today's video. All right, guys, so this is that adorable monster set. Oh my gosh, like how fun is that? Just stamping one of the little guys and the sentiment and then coloring it in. And these guys are so fun and simple to color too, because you just pull out whatever colors you want and just have fun with it, right? And then here I used the plaid background. This way, I just used the plaid background. I stamped it once this way, flipped it, and stamped it once this way. And that gives you this whole background. So don't get me wrong, the peel apart is nice, but if you're feeling lazy and you don't want to pull out all of the different stripes and you want a pre-made plaid, that's what's so cool about this background stamp. I spread out those stripes just enough so that you can really create your own plaid even with just the stamps that are sitting in there. You don't have to pull them out. All right, how fun is that? Now here I used the Whimsical ovals. This was a past stencil and I used the tiny diamonds too. You're gonna see a lot of different products we've already released. So there's a pinned comment in the live chat and that is the link to go shopping. So if you're on the Ranger site or on scrapbook.com, you can always check out all of the past products we've released too, because they work really nicely with the new stuff. So here I created kind of a Halloween background with the purple and orange overlapping each other. And then I, of course, used these cute little monsters on top. And I've been having fun with using like a couple different sentiments on one card, especially with these. So this little guy, I'm only here for the candy, and then Happy Halloween to finish it off. So that background, the whimsical ovals are really fun to kind of create a grounding place, and it sort of spotlights each monster to create a really great area for them. And it almost looks kind of fun and playful. It gives it a really fun look. All right, guys. Now, like I was saying, you don't just have to use those monsters for Halloween. That's the important part. I hope that after this live, you guys see, like, you can really color these guys in, and it really is all about color and context clues, right? So this stamp, you clearly know that he's in the winter because he's got this snowflake background stamp. This one is called Stitch Snowflakes. We're still selling it. It's an amazing background stamp that has tons of detail in all these little snowflakes. I used it on some craft cardstock. I ink blended some blue in the background, and then I stamped down my little monster. Now this guy I colored to look like a Yeti. So I colored his little face blue here, colored the rest of him gray. So of course those colors are also giving context clues for the Yeti. And then I took an image. This hat happens to be from the penguin stamp set. I think it's called Polar Penguins. So that's a really awesome way to kind of accessorize him, but grab whatever sort of hat you have in your collection. And then I stamped down one of the sentiments from one of my Christmas sets that says, "It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas." And that finishes it off so nicely. So once again, this is not just a Halloween stamp set. You're gonna see, you can really use it all year long, right? Take these monsters, dress them up in birthday hats. They're now at a birthday party. It really is that easy to go in past sets of my Simon Hurley Create collection or any other stamps that you have and really fit them all together. The thing I like about using products from the same line is I tend to draw in the same sort of style, but you can always go back and look in your collection to see what else you have from other companies too. All right, next, we brought one of the monsters in and I used this guy for Valentine's Day. I thought it would be just adorable for Valentine's Day. This one especially was screaming to be colored in for Valentine's. So I love this little guy with his hair there. I colored him purple and then I added a little bit of pink right around him and then stamped down this sentiment that says, "You look beautiful." And then of course we added him down onto a heart to give a little bit more context clues. And then this background is done using the tiny heart stencil. So I just lunar pasted that using a little bit of prom queen paste. So it gives kind of a tone on tone and shiny look, which is just beautiful. But again, these monsters are not just for Halloween. You know it's a good release because last night I was sitting down and I could not be stopped. I think I was up till like 2 in the morning crafting with all of the different products. And so I created these last night. I was like, you know what? They really need to see how to work these in all year long because I knew sort of that I was going to be using them all year, but I wanted to really share the different versatility of them. So you'll see me pull out this set for Valentine's Day and consider this my Valentine's Day set, right? Like this is such a fun one, and I think you're gonna really enjoy pulling it out for a lot of different occasions. And the sentiments in there really match a lot of different occasions. All right, you guys are loving that set. Now moving on to the next one, Friendship Florals. I love this one. So of course you could take that sort of cluster of flowers. I stamped it in with all of the different colors. One thing I love about this set too is you could take that cluster and you can flip it and you can kind of create a whole background of them. So have 2 of them on one card and sort of create a frame to put a sentiment inside. I used the plaid again, but this time I used it tone on tone. I think I used cookie dough on top of craft cardstock to create a really nice light looking plaid. And it again just gives a really nice traditional modern look to it. I love plaid. It's one of my favorite patterns. And then I stamped it down using the sentiment that says life is better with a friend like you. And I love that one. It's just adorable. All right. And yes, Scrappa.com just said they're already thinking of using the heart cut stamping foam with this. That would be another amazing idea. Stamp it down with the heart cut stamping foam, put this little guy inside, and you've got yourself a beautiful card. All right. Now this one. Again, how to turn any stamp holiday. It really, guys, it is all about the context clues. It doesn't need to be a holiday set because like I said, what kind of flower is this? I don't really know, right? Like it doesn't really matter. But to give it context clues, I stamped it down with the red and green plaid to create sort of a holiday look. If you guys can see, I'm already in a sort of holiday kick here. And I stamped it down instead of crisscross like that. I stamped it kind of vertically and then horizontally, and you get this really beautiful effect. So we've got that kind of intersecting point, and I was like, we need a focal point there. So I placed down this flower, and I absolutely loved it. And then I stamped it down using some reds and greens. So giving it those context clues to create almost like the color of a poinsettia, but have it be sort of a flower that's not a poinsettia, right? Any sort of set can work for your holidays, which I think is amazing. And then on here, I added a little bit of Slippery When Wet lunar paste into the center to give some shine. And I also used a little dotting tool, and I dotted on some Game Over lunar paste to add a little bit of shine to the flower and a little bit more detail. And so that's what I love about lunar paste. I stamped this flower in a little bit of Love Struck and Game Over, and then I'm able to take the coordinating Game Over color and add it down just for a little bit of shine when you tilt it. A little bit more detail, and really is all about those detailed little things that you do to finish a card off. And then of course, to finish this one, I added the sentiment from one of my Christmas sets. So even though there's not Christmas sentiments per se in the set, go in and grab one from your collection and you got a great finished card. You guys are loving this. Yes, it looks like gift wrap. I know, this plaid, I'm telling you guys, the plaid is perfection. It really is so simple. And I'll show you guys how easy it is to line things up and make sure that it, lines up perfectly. But yeah, it's easy to use that plaid and get just such a stunning effect. All right, coming on to the final few cards using the Spread Your Wings stamp set. I love this one. It's one of my favorites. I used the 2 birds and then I used the solid stamps to color those in and get a lot of shading. I'm going to share that in today's live as well. So I love how colored in those guys are. And then, like I said, it really fills the card nicely. So to finish this off, I used the Scene Maker stencil, and I just used the clouds on some blue cardstock to blend that out and give it a great background. I think it really matches those birds nicely. So if you want to, pick up that Scene Maker stencil and you're going to have a beautiful background once you're done. I love this card. And again, I sort of used Halloween colors on these guys, but I love how they look together. Purple and orange complement each other nicely. But again, make them scary birds if you want to make them for Halloween. All right. And then finally, I finished it off with kind of a bold look I used mint tape to mask off these different sections, and then I went in and I blended this down with a couple of Simon Hurley Create inks. And then I went in with some water because my inks react with water. So I went over top of these with a little bit of water to kind of lighten them up and give them a sort of bleached effect. And I absolutely love how it looks. It kind of brightens the background, and then in the background here, I used a little bit of tiny circles stencil, and I did a sort of tone-on-tone blending, and I love how it looks. It's bold, it's really super colorful, and so definitely play around with different colors and different designs to create this look. And I love how it looks. It just is beautiful. All right, you guys. So that is all of the card making samples, and now we can sort of get into chatting and crafting together. Now, before we get into crafting, I did want to cover one point that I forgot to mention. These stamp sets all have coordinating dies, or sorry, not coordinating dies. They have coordinating files, cut files, that if you have an electronic machine like the Silhouette or the Cricut, you can download those from Ranger as you purchase the stamps. You can click on digital cut file and then add that to your cart too. That way you'll get the file and you can cut those out. Or you can always hand fussy cut them. That's what I tend to do right now. Some people are asking about dies for the future. We already are working along with Spellbinders. We've partnered up with Spellbinders to create dies in the future. So in Christmas, in October, when we release that, you'll have all of the coordinated dies to cut with just a normal die cutting machine. So trust me, that is coming. We're working on it. But right now, there are digital die cuts for these sort of stamps. But anything in the future will most likely have dies to go along with it. All right, I hope that answers all of your questions in there. Some of you guys are going to say you're going to have to break it to your significant other, husband or wife, that you're purchasing all of these stamps, which is so funny. I see Una in there. Lots of you guys are, I know, heading out to go shopping. So if you want to, open another browser and head out and come back once you're done, and we're going to be crafting right here. All right, so I wanted to start off by sharing the Plaid stamp. So what I like to use with the Plaid stamp is some sort of sticky mat. You can use the sticky mat from Brutus Monroe. You can use the sticky mat from scrapbook.com. I love any of them. I'm going to peel off the acetate, and then I'm going to place down a piece of my struck white cardstock. So I'm going to place this right in the center, and I'm just making sure to center it on the mat because these lines are going to come in handy. So taking that little bit of extra time is going to ensure that we get the lines nice and straight. All right, so I'm going to now pull out my acrylic blocks. Now, I like to use this large acrylic block from my Simon Hurley Create line. Definitely pick this one up. It really helps with these sort of larger peel apart stamps. And I'm going to pull in this thick diagonal stripe. I find this to be an easy place to start for me. I don't know why. I think it's because it's thicker and easier to work with, because then you've got kind of a grounding place to put some smaller lines on. All right, and then all I'm gonna do is line this up on my acrylic block, and this acrylic block was designed like perfectly to fit these stamps kind of across like this, and also to fit stamping foam. So it's got a couple different uses. All right, now I have been loving the idea of using this dark gray for one of the stripes. So I'm gonna bring in Shady, and I'm going to start by stamping this. So just ink up your stripe with whatever color ink you guys have. And the thing I like about using this dark gray is, again, it gives it kind of a grounding place. It gives it kind of a dark neutral. And then you can go in with lighter colors. You can go in with whatever colors for the season that you're using. So if I was doing Christmas here, I would do reds and greens. And then if I was doing a fall plaid, I would use kind of oranges and browns and things like that. Now here's where this mat comes in handy. All right, I'm going to line it up on these lines. And if I want to do diagonal, I can do diagonal. If I want to line it up straight and down with the lines, I could. But the thing I like about the diagonal is I'm going to go from this stripe to this stripe down here. So just line it up on your mat and then stamp it down. All right, give it some good pressure and check that stripe out. Look at how much texture and dimension you get in that stripe. It looks almost woven, right? And this is just the diagonal stripe one. We haven't even gone in with the checkered stripe. All right, so then next I'm going to do the same thing, bring in more Shady. I love this color. Yeah, it's just such a great neutral. So if you're in the marketplace for some neutral grays or browns, shady is one of my favorites. All right. Make sure that color is nice and even on there. And then I'm doing the same thing on the other side, lining it up with these exact same lines. Which one did I use? This one. And then I'll stamp it down. Give it some good pressure. And there we go. And you can see where it crisscrosses in the center. Because it's those diagonals, you get that darker color in there, and it intersects just like a normal plaid would. I love it. So check that out. It gives it, if you've seen the pinstripe stamp, it gives a totally different look than the pinstripes, but it's a similar concept where you can kind of take the stripes and stamp them down all separately, which I love to get all these different colors. All right, now I'm going to keep shady here. I'm going to keep that stripe on the acrylic block. And guys, I've invested myself in some acrylic blocks, so I've got like several of them of the same one, because I like to take out some stripes and have them on hand for when I sort of repeat the design. All right, now what's next? Let's see. I want to do, so we did a stripe. Let's do, you guys, I don't know. Let's do this one. Oh my gosh, there's so many options here. I'm gonna do this. So this is one of the checkered stripes. You can barely see the checkering on video because it's very small, but when you stamp it, you sort of get that texture in real life. And whenever I'm using one of these stamps, especially if it's thinner, drop it on your surface like that so that it sort of smooths out and goes nice and straight. And then I'm going to take this and add it down onto my acrylic block. So there we go. And then I'm going to go in and let's see, guys, what kind of plaid should we make? I think we're gonna make a fall plaid because we're feeling the fall spirit. But if I'm gonna be completely honest, I'll be using this plaid stamp all year long, so you guys are gonna see it in a bunch of different colors. All right, so I'm going in with a little bit of roar. I want to use just this dark orange. I think this is gonna be beautiful. All right, and I like sort of to do thick and then thin stripes, and I'll line this up. I'm looking in my camera now to see if we've got things aligned, because I don't want to get my head in frame. But of course, if I was doing this crafting project by myself, like I would be all up over top of this stamp to make sure that it's lined up. So don't be afraid to look above and make sure that things are lining up nicely. And so then here, the grid lines aren't as important anymore because I sort of lined it up next to the edge of the last stamped stripe. So I'll go in here and just stamp that down. There we go. And then whenever I do a diagonal like this, I do like to just easily repeat it on the other side. So go in, stamp that down, and then I'll go in one more time and stamp it down again. Perfect. Look at how that's looking already. Oh my gosh, I love it. And so you can see now where this is intersecting, it just gets so interesting. It looks so cool. Beautiful design there. I love it. All right. Now next, I'm going to go in and let's see. I'm going to use, what should be next? Like maybe yellow. I'm going to use Slippery and Wet. This is a good fall color. I think it's kind of a golden yellow, a little bit neutral. And then I'm going to go in with, let's see, like I want something smaller. Let's do this stripe. I think this one's cool. So like I said, some of them have like 2 or 3 stripes on them to get that plaid look without really having to work for it. So this one is 3 stripes with a diagonal stripe going throughout them. All right, so I'll take this, again, lie it flat, and then I'll lift it up on my block. All right, now let's go in with some Slippery and Wet. Ink that up. And then we'll go in here and stamp this down. Now, if you guys are getting this plaid, let me know what colors you're gonna use, what season you think it's gonna be best for you. I'm so excited that we're releasing this in fall and didn't wait for the holidays, because what's awesome about this is you're gonna buy it for the fall. You can use it for sort of any fall plaid patterns, right? Because I think plaid is really huge in the fall, like using oranges and yellows to create this sort of harvest plaid. And then using it in the winter, then it really carries over nicely. And you've got it in your collection, so then you can, of course, bring it in for whatever holiday you want, which I think is the best part about it for sure for me. I'm super excited to use it for Christmas. I mean, you guys already saw. I am using it for Christmas already, but I'm excited for it to be closer. All right. And there we go. Look how that looks. I am loving it. And some people are saying, Gloria, I see you said that you might have a hard time getting the line stripe. Trust me, I think it is pretty easy with this mat. I wanted to make it sort of as easy as possible. So if you have sort of a cutting mat with lines on it, that would be great to work with. I could sort of tape it down to there and use those lines to line it up. And then, of course, if you have sort of a sticky mat, it's going to stay in place really nicely. So you can sort of line it up like that. But check that out. I'm not going to continue like too far into this, but I did want to share how to design your own plaid like this and really go in and use those stripes to their best advantage with all of these different colors. I love it. And you can really go in, like if you think my plaid is too bright, go in with more muted colors. Here I used Shady, then I used Guppy, which is a much lighter orange yellow color, and then I used Cookie Dough. So you can see this one is sort of lighter, more toned down. These colors are gonna sink in a little bit more, but they're brighter and they're more bold. So that's what's awesome about this is, you know, you could have sort of a pattern paper with all the different plaids in it, but one thing I don't love about pattern paper is like you're scared to use it because there's not enough of it, right? So you're scared to put it on a project. But with this, it's so exciting because no project is going to look the same as anyone else's, which is one of my goals when we created these peel apart stamps, is to make background stamps more versatile. And then of course you can use whatever colors you want, whatever design you want. It can be seasonal, and that's so awesome. It's just the versatility of this. And Mary is saying the texture on the stamp is so unique. Yes, it really is, I'm telling you guys. It's hard to see exactly on video, but the textures that we've included in here are just insanely cool. So you can even see it in that orange. That orange is kind of the woven one. Oh, it's not even picking it up as much as it should on camera, but like it's a bunch of little tiny dots, little micro dots to create that pattern, which is just so unique. All right, now let me share too, if you're using a sticky mat and you've got ink on it, especially if it's Simon Hurley Create ink, it's coming off really easily, right? Because with my inks, they clean off nicely with water. So that's one thing that I love about them. I just spray this down with a little bit of water there. And then you want to use something sort of lint-free. So I'm going to use a paper towel here, and then I'm just going to lightly wipe. You want to lightly wipe, not really rub. If you're wiping like this, it should come off really easily, but if you rub it and scrub it, the adhesive is going to come off as well, and you don't want that. So wipe that off with a little bit of water, and then you might be a little bit worried because it loses its stick a little bit when you wiped it off with water, but when you let it dry, and you can kind of let it air dry like this, the stick comes right back. So that's the awesome part about these mats. They become nice and sticky right after you clean them, and then you're ready to store it. So all I do is grab my acetate sheet. I'll place it down onto here, and then you're ready to store it. All right, now let me go in and just show you how easy it is to put this stamp back together, because I want to share another technique with it really quickly. So I'm just going to go in with a little bit of water, and again, like I said, my inks clean off super easily. So I'm just going to spray it down with a tiny bit of water, grab out my disgusting rag. I think I've had this rag literally as long as I've been crafting, which is like 7 years maybe. I don't know, maybe more than that, but that's concerning. Like I need to get a new one for sure. All right, then I just go in with these stamps, going to peel them off the surface, and then it's super easy to just fit it right back into place. And then, like I said, if you need help kind of getting it into that groove, just tilt the stamp a little bit, and the cuts will kind of come apart, and then it'll sink right back into there. All right. Super simple. We'll go back in with this stripe here. And then last but not least, this one. And like, yeah, it's so easy to put back together. and I keep it on this acetate sheet because it holds it all together. So keep your stamps on the sheets they come in. They really are helpful for storage as well. All right, then just tilt the stamp. Make sure it's all back together there. And that looks great. All right, so let me set this off to the side now that we're all clean. And I wanted to share how to just stamp this normally. Because if you saw that and you were like, that's a little bit too much work. This is the easy part about this stamp. Like I said, I spread these out evenly across so that, one striped one is not necessarily next to the next striped one. And so there's, a thick one here and a thick one here and not too many in one place, right? We did that on purpose because I wanted you to be able to use this stamp just by itself. So I'm gonna go in with these two colors. These are the ones I used in one of my examples. I love these two colors together. It is Clear Skies and Psych. Like I said, these are bright colors, so if this isn't your cup of tea and you want to go in with neutrals, that's totally up to you, right? You can create sort of the tone-on-tone look that I shared. There's lots of different ways to use this plaid stamp. I'm going to start off with a little bit of Psych. I love this color. It's one of my favorites from my line. It just gives you the brightest greenish yellow color, and it fits in with so many different color families. Whenever I'm adding stamps or ink down to a stamp, especially if it's a little bit of a solid stamp, I kind of place my finger down into here to give it some pressure, and then I sort of twist onto the stamp just to get a lot of ink on the surface, and then to even it out, I just go in with the ink pad and lightly tap over top of the surface. The lighter the taps, the more even color you're going to get, but I always like to start off by just applying the ink down a little bit heavier. I'll place that right into the plaid. And with this one, if you were worried about making sure that things were lined up, like you don't really have to worry about that with this because it's all going to be lined up for you. Just press this into the stamp. And of course, if you want to, you can use this in the MISTI too, but I find that this is the easiest thing to do. Add some pressure down. You can either do it with your fingers or you can use a pressure tool. And then there we have our stamped image. You can see I didn't press enough in that corner, but totally fine. Once this whole plaid thing is done too, it will kind of cover that mistake up. All right. And then I'm going to go in with a little bit of water. Clean that off. And like I said, that's one of my favorite parts about my inks. They clean off beautifully and they don't stain, which is the nicest part. Then I'm going to go in with Clear Skies. I'm going to do it on this side. Gonna kind of twist my ink pad to get lots of ink onto the surface. And also, if you notice that something's not stamping, sometimes it's because the cuts, like one is sticking up a little bit further than the other and blocking it. So just push it down, press it back into the stamp, and that can help it stamp again. All right, so tap it off again to make sure that you're getting a nice even color, and then we'll press that right into there and use my pressure tool to get a nice even pressure across the surface. All right, are you guys ready? Check that out. And like I said, it kind of covered it up with that one stripe there, but look at how beautiful that is. And once this sort of sinks in with that blue, it's not going to be as harsh. It's going to smooth out a little bit more. But look at all of those beautiful colors and textures. And it really is that simple. And like I said, you want to do this stamp tone on tone, you totally could. It doesn't need to be this bold, but I just wanted to show it with two really bright colors so you could kind of create a sort of summer pattern, a pattern that's great for the monsters. It really is up to you. And there is just so much versatility in this stamp because if you want to, you can put in the work, right? And then sometimes if you're feeling lazy, which I know sometimes I feel a little bit lazy, this is a good way to go too, because you can still get two colors in there if you want to. You could also do just one color both ways. And there are so many varieties of plaids you can create. It really is amazing. It's insanely cool how unique this stamp is. And it's always been a goal of mine to just like make stamps that people can use and everybody's cards are going to end up looking different. And so that's really the awesome part about this. Your creativity shines through and you can create however you want to, which is just insanely cool. All right, you guys. We're on 45 minutes and I'm only talked about the plaid yet, so we've got some more, so let's keep moving. I'm gonna just quickly clean this off and then I'm going to move on. Yes, Elizabeth says she's a lazy crafter. Elizabeth, me as well. Me as well. That is why I make most of the products, and so like I wanted to make sure that even though this stamp is super cool and you could peel it apart and use all of the different gizmos and gadgets about it, I wanted to make sure that it's like, okay, in a simple function, does this stamp still stamp, right? Does it still stamp all together? And it does, and it looks really cool the way that it is. Yeah, I am mad for this plaid stamp. You're right, Ranger. Like it's insane. All right. So next I wanted to share how to use some of the solid images. So I'm going to pull in this Spread Your Wings stamp set. I've already pre-stamped an image onto here. So I pre-stamped and heat embossed because you guys know I love my clear heat embossing. And so then this is going to be really easy for me to color in. But I wanted to share my process for using these sort of solid stamps because I think I use them in a way that not everybody quite thinks about. So using a MISTI is great for this technique. If you don't have one, you can always use the solid stamps on an acrylic block. You don't need the MISTI, but I like it just to get a little bit more variation in the stamping that I'm doing. So I'm just gonna tape this down right here because I'm gonna do lots of stamping and just to make sure that it stays in place perfectly. All right, so let's go in with some ink pads. I'm gonna do it sort of inspired by this card example and using those same colors. But like I said, if you want to color these birds red and make them sort of Christmas birds, do that. Do whatever you guys want. So I'm starting off with a really light color. Oh wait, you guys, I didn't even pull out the solid versions yet. Sometimes I get a little ahead of myself and then I realize halfway through the step I was doing that I'm just way too far ahead. All right, so these are easy to line up. Line it up with kind of the eye hole, and it'll be easy to line it up with these bold shapes of the birds. All right. And especially with the MISTI, the awesome part about this is you line it up one time, and then it's good to go for all your stamping. So take a little bit of time to do it, and then it's good to go for your stamping. All right. Now that we've done that, I'm going to go in with a little bit of Over the Moon, which is a really light yellow color. Oh, you guys all want to know what color the rag was. See, I haven't been looking up at the comments. So the rag was, I think it was white. Yeah, that's the sad part. It's like, it's disgusting. But it definitely used to be white. All right, so I've stamped down that one color just one time. Now, if I want to, I can always go back in with the same color and stamp it again. That's the awesome part about this MISTI stamping tool is you can get this color as solid or as bold as you want it to. Once I like that color, I think I'm happy with where that's at, then we can move into shading. Now, whenever I shade, I like to grab kind of a color that's a next step up. So this is a little bit darker. It's more orange toned, and this is gonna work perfectly for my shading. So, now where is, oh, here it is. So this is the bin of all of my little blending tools. These are detail blending tools. These are made by Ranger. They're 5 in a pack and they're dual ended. They're the same like blending foam that you know and love that are on the larger tools. They're just a lot smaller so we can get into here and color in some of the details. And you know what? Let me go in here quickly and I'm just gonna add a sheet of cardstock down there so that you guys can easily see what we're working on. All right, so bringing in a little bit of guppy. I'm gonna put it off to the side so you guys can't see the ink pad, but you'll see what I do with it. So I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna start off by just shading on top of its wing. I'm gonna go, you know, mediumly down onto the wing. Not cover the whole thing, but I want to add a decent amount of color onto there. I'm also going to go into the tail and dab some color on there. And then I'm going to go into the stomach, dab a little color on there. And again, going mediumly. I don't even know what that means. We come up with our own little words during these demos to try to describe what we're saying, but like you want enough color because we're going in with a darker color after this. So, All right, I'm gonna stamp that down, and then I'm going to go in again if I want to. And this is the nice part about having the Misty, is we're dabbing this color onto the surface. So we can add as much or as little as we want. And also going in with a blending tool like this creates sort of a softer, more blended color than just going in with your normal ink pad would be, right? So that's what I love about this. I'm gonna add more color onto his head there. And then I'm going to stamp it down one more time. Check out that color that we're getting. It's blended, gorgeous. It sort of all fades into each other and blends super nicely. And this, I'm telling you guys, this is why I love these solid stamps. Don't overlook them. Don't be like, oh, well, that's just like for simple color. I like to watercolor or whatever. That's great, but like using your ink pads in this way really brings these stamps to life. And so if you have a stamping tool, great. If you don't, you can always stamp these solid and just stamp them right over top. And it's easy. It's just a nice simple coloring. And one thing I love too is when you stamp down that wing with the solid, it actually leaves a little bit of white. So it gives the wing a bunch of texture in there, which I am obsessed with. All right. Now, last but not least, we're going in with, I don't have any of these labeled, so I just kind of grab, pick and choose whatever one I want. I think I'm gonna, yeah, use the same orange one. And then last but not least, what color do we think I used here? I don't know. I think it looks like Roar. But we layer it up so much that sometimes I don't even know what the color is anymore. And then I'm going to go in here and last time I said mediumly. This time smallly. Like, I don't know what I'm even saying anymore, but like a little tiny area you want to cover. So on the wing, I'm going to go down just a tiny bit. And then on the edge here, I'm going to go down like in just the slightest little tiny bit. Just giving this darkest color on the edge. And you're going to see, once we stamp this down, like this last color is game changing. It just brings it to life completely. And so, of course, if you want to, go in a couple more times on these specific areas. If I want his tail to be a little bit darker, go in there and darken it just a little bit. If you want his wing area to be darker too, it just takes a little dab of the sponge to get a lot more color onto here. All right, and while we're at it, his beak needs to also be orange. So I'm just gonna stamp that in, and there we go. We've got a nice dark color on. And so yes, Ranger's saying in the chat, this is a technique to get so much depth and dimension into these birds and just using the sort of solid images from the set. So the Floral set had those solid images in it, and this set has the solid images, and you just get such a beautiful effect. Gloria, I used 3 different colors of inks for this because you're gonna get the most variation with that. But you bring up a great point, because if you want to, you could just go in with, let's say, 1 color of ink and then dab that same color of ink onto those areas, because ink is a translucent medium, or at least these dye-based inks are. And so if you're layering them up like this, you're gonna get sort of a darker area in that section you keep layering it in. Now, it's not gonna be as dimensional as this because it's 3 different tones that are like completely different shades, but yes, it will give you a sort of shaded effect, which is just beautiful. All right, now I'm gonna go in, we're gonna do the purple bird, because the purple, I don't think purple gets enough love, and I'm telling you guys, this purple bird was one of my favorite things I've done. I was like, wow. The color combination was just great. So going in, and all you need to do is just place this back on the stamp set, and then go in and grab this purple bird. All right, and again, line it up with the eye hole, and then with the edge of the design. And just spend a second more to just make sure it's nice and lined up. All right, and then I'm gonna stamp it down. Now, for this first color, I'm gonna use this light color. Now, these light colors really come in handy. We have a couple in the line in all different shades, and Sidewalk Chalk is one of my favorites. So Sidewalk Chalk is just this light purple. It's almost kind of a lavender tone. It's beautiful. So when you stamp it down, you get that light purple color. I'm gonna do it one more time. Beautiful. And then we'll go in with this nice warm purple color. This one is called Triple Berry. I love it. And then I'm going to shade it in. Again, mediumly. I'm going to just start using that term now like it's a normal thing. And I'm going to add it a little bit onto the wing. About 3/4 the way down. See, now that's the real way to explain it with exact numbers. But here, I'm not so exact, so I like to just tell you random terms that hopefully you understand. There we go. Add a little bit more purple down there. And Tracy in the chat is mentioning something totally important. Yes. After all, these are open images. And so like you have the freedom to color however you would like in them. So if you want to watercolor, bring out your watercolors. If you want to use colored pencils, let's bring those out, you know? So like do whatever fits your needs. She mentioned Zentangling. If you want to Zentangle inside of these, they would be great to draw in because there's a lot of open space in here. I see Ranger hashtagging mediumly. That's the new phrase here. All right, then we're going with Crown Me, and we're gonna do this one, just a small little area. Gonna add a little bit down onto the tail, and then just a little bit onto the top of that wing, and then tiniest bit of his head and stomach to just add a little bit more shading. And these three purples together, they're just gorgeous. Like, check that out. There is something just so beautiful about using different shades of ink together to get that really variegated look and to get just so much dimension into that image. So I wanted to share this because I know sometimes people just go right in with their ink pads, but doing this sort of slow and steady wins the race kind of method, really, because it's a little bit slower, but you get such a beautiful effect from it and a beautiful result in the end. So I love that. Oh wait, before I do anything, I need orange for the little beak. Can't forget about that. It's all part of the same stamp, so just add a little bit of orange down to his beak, and then you can stamp that down super easily. All right? How simple is that? And then go and see. I have several rags. This one was also white, but it's not as bad. But when you use a lot of ink, they get dirty pretty fast. All right. And then to finish coloring this, it's really simple. All you need to do, let me just put these things away. All you would need to do to finish coloring this is just go in with some inks. So if you want to, we can pull out, oh, that almost ended so poorly. Don't hurry. Otherwise I would have dropped that on my card. All right. I'm gonna go in using a little bit of Gur and then a little bit of Weeping Willow to add some shading. And then for the leaves, I'm gonna go in using just a little bit of Later Gator. I'll spray some water down onto my craft sheet. And then I'm going to go in and color this. So I'm just gonna take a little detail brush. I like these little Ranger brushes simply because they're pretty inexpensive, but they're pretty good quality for what they are. And I like the little small one in the pack and the medium round one. I like to add a little bit of water down to the surface before I go in with any sort of color. So I'll just throw down a little bit of water all throughout. This gets the surface of the cardstock sort of ready to take a little bit of that color. And then I'll go in and bring my lightest color first. So here I'm going in using a little bit of Gur. And like this branch is just so small that it's super simple to color in. Of course, you could also do this same technique with any sort of images to color. But super simple to just go in and blend that out. And then if you want to, go in with a little bit of Weeping Willow. And this color is a lot darker. It's really nice and intense and super rich. And I'm just gonna go on either side of the bird because there would be a little bit of shading there. Then I'm gonna add it a little bit here. So just add it all the way around to get some good depth and dimension. All right, and then I'm gonna go in using a little bit of Later Gator and just add it down to these leaves. So super simple. I didn't feel the need to design a stamp that colors in the branch. It was just a little bit too easy to do, and it took up a little bit too much space in the set to do that. But like super simple if you want to. You don't even need to get out the inks. Literally just go in your collection and grab markers. This is just what I'm used to, so it's pretty easy for me, but markers or colored pencil would color this in just as easily. And there you just have a beautiful image. Check that out. And then of course you can go in with the sort of stencils that I mentioned. There's the scene maker stencil to create those sort of clouds in the background. And there's lots of different ways to kind of jazz this up a little bit. If you have a tree background, that could be kind of cool to add this on. So just a beautiful image. I love the shading that you can get from that sort of stamping. It just gives so much life to the image. Such happy colors. I love it. All right. Now next, should I share one more thing? I think I'm going to. I wanted to share these monsters. Now I created this little postcard and I wanted to share some different coloring techniques. So let me just zoom in just a little bit here so that you guys can really see this up close. I stamped these down onto some stark white cardstock. And again, I used 3 of the different sentiments. How cute is this card, right? And I wanted to color it in with you guys because showing some different coloring techniques, especially with these sort of images, there's not many images in my line right now that have these sort of lines to add shading in them. And I wanted to just show how easy they are to color in, right? So let me go in with some super simple colors. I'm gonna choose blue, so let's do some clear skies. I'm also gonna choose some psych because why not? And then what goes with those two? Let's do an orange too. I'm gonna do a little bit of guppy, and then we'll bring in some darker colors that'll help shade. So like traffic cone will help shade the guppy. No diving will be great with the blue. And then what works with the green? You know what? I love this color with the green. It's an unexpected color because it's sort of a teal, but it mixes and creates such a beautiful tone. All right. And then one more thing. He has a sucker. So we'll color in his sucker red. All right. Now I'm gonna add some water again down to my craft sheet. The reason I spray it down is because if I had a cup here, I would knock it down for sure. But all you need to do is go in. I'm gonna start with this guy because he's got a lot of open space. Super simple to just add down a layer of water. Now, I've gotten some comments sometimes of people being like, you know, coloring with inks is a little bit scary. I don't really want to do it. What other ways are there to do? Or like, what tips do you have? And so these are going to be all my tips. So if you struggle with coloring with inks, this is going to be super helpful for you. So starting off, I like to clear heat emboss the image. That's the first and foremost thing because the clear heat embossing is going to kind of keep the color inside of the lines. It's melted plastic, so it acts as sort of a barrier from the water to get out of your surface, right? So that's what I first do. But then once I'm done with that, I add down a layer of water onto my image before I start coloring with it. That makes all the difference. It's game changing, really. Before I knew that, the color just kind of sinks into the cardstock, and it truly is kind of disappointing. It's like, oh, what am I doing wrong, you know? Because it doesn't blend smoothly. But look at, I'm adding lots of color down. This is a large surface area. I'm even letting some time for it to sink in as I go in to try to pick up the next color quickly. And you can see the color is still super nice and smooth. There's no harsh marks. And that's because we added that water down first. It really is one of the most important steps to get a nice, smooth, and even coloring. See, check that out. Super smooth across the surface. Yep, so these are from my collection. These are, it's called Mythical Monsters. It's in this release, which is super exciting. Now for the next layer, you can either go in with the same color and a little bit less water. This time I'm gonna bring in a little bit No Diving, which is a little bit of darker blue color. And I'm going to just color this in wherever I see those sort of lines. Those lines are gonna be my guiding point to add color because that's where the artist decided to add a little bit of shading. Then I'm gonna add some water to kind of help blend it out. And I'm going to continue blending downward and kind of following those lines. Now the same rules still do apply here though, whereas I always said in the past, like wherever a body part meets, you can add some extra shading. So where this leg meets here, I'm gonna add a little bit of a darker shading. Same thing with his little hand down here. And then I'm also going to continue following this though. So like wherever these stripes are, I'm gonna go in and add a little bit of darker color. It just complements the artwork really nicely to add shading in those areas. So like where his mouth is right here, I'll add a little bit more color, and then I'll finish it off with just some shading here. And you'll notice that when I'm adding in this darker color, I add down lots less water than I did at the beginning, just to make it darker and for it to stay a little bit more concentrated. But if you need to kind of blend these together, go back in with a little bit of water and blend them. And it's super forgiving, and you're gonna get such a beautiful color onto there. Great. And then if we want to, grab a little bit of yellow. Of course, this guy hasn't brushed his teeth in a little while, so add a little bit of shading to those. All right. Next for this guy, same sort of deal. Add down water. And really just kind of cover the whole image. It doesn't need to be soaking wet either. You just need to kind of get the surface ready for color. So it just needs to have water on it once before you start going in with color. It just kind of gets the surface ready to take any sort of color that you're gonna apply to it. And then we'll go in and add down our color. And here I'm using Psych. Again, Psych is one of my favorites. It's just this super bright green color, but it works with kind of greens. It works with kind of blues, but it also works with oranges. So that's why I pulled both of those colors. It works kind of in the yellow family too. It kind of doesn't know what it is, and that's what I love about it, because it can work with so many different color families. And then, of course, go back in with your darker color, whatever that happens to be. Here I'm going to use Tropical Tango, which is going to create kind of a nice green color in between. And then just add that color down to all of these shaded areas. Add it onto his little tuft of hair up there too. And like, so simple to blend this together. And then we'll add a little bit of yellow to his horns. Cute. And then I'll bring in some water to blend that out. I mean, just so simple. And then he's got a nice little tongue, so we'll color that in. I mean, how easy is that? Super forgiving, super easy to color in. I really love it. And then last but not least, we'll go in with one last guy, and you can see, you can really, like, once you get the hang of these coloring, it really is simple. You can kind of fly through it. And especially with these monsters, because they've got a little bit more detail work to them. They got a little bit more line work in them. So it's easier to just go in and color and not worry too much, because there's already sort of a natural shading that you're going to get because of those lines. So it doesn't need to be perfectly smooth, and it doesn't need to be perfectly blended, because the lines already add that detail in, right? It's not just one huge open area that you're coloring in. All right, and then I'll go in with some orange, and again, follow that sort of line work. And bring in some color. Oh my gosh, so cute. And then same thing, I'll add some down to where his like leg meets his body, and where there would be some kind of natural shadows. So like under arms and things like that. Super cool. All right, and then blend it out with a little bit of water. And there we go. I'm loving how this guy's turning out. Of course, we can add some more color to his horn, and then give him a nice red lollipop. How fun. All right. So that was what I wanted to share with coloring. It really is beautiful, and it's super easy to do with all those different tips. So follow those steps to get just a super easy coloring. Make sure to add the water down first, then go in with your first layer of color and some water, and then go in and add a little bit of extra shading down. So you can go in with your next color and add a little bit less water and get just such a beautifully shaded effect. Following those steps is really gonna help you. And now this is so simple. Like, all I need to do is add this down to a card and you've got a beautiful and fun Halloween card. So I love that about this. Super easy to do. And you've just created a palette using inks and used inks. So the one thing I love about that is like you've already invested in your ink pads for stamping, and so using them for watercoloring is super, super simple. Yep, it's simple and quick. That's right, David. It's my kind of coloring too, because I don't love to sit there and fuss for, you know, hours to make sure the shading is perfect. There's some people that love to do that and they get such beautiful results. I like to do kind of quick and simple things and get some good results in the end. All right, so there's my examples of cards. Thank you guys so much for joining me. It really does mean the world to me whenever all of you guys are here and we've kind of built this amazing community where we can interact and I can share some really fun new products with you and most of all, like how to really incorporate those products. I love the ending of these lives where I get to really craft with you guys because I get to share lots of tips. And so I think the biggest takeaway for me today and even yesterday when I was crafting with this release is like, when you're looking at this release or when you're looking at any of the products you see from all these different companies, of course, some of it's going to be very seasonal, like you saw that pumpkin stamp set. That you're pretty much going to only use in the fall. But with all of the other sets in this, even those monsters, you saw like how to give the card context clues, like the snow to turn it a Yeti and the heart to make it a Valentine's Day card. You can really have the versatility to bring these products in all year long and use them no matter what, even with that plaid where you get to create it in whatever colors you want. So I hope you see that in my line, and I hope you're able to see that as you look at your own products that are in your stash to be like, how can I use this all throughout the year? How can I bring in a different set that I have to maybe make it even more versatile? And that to me is what's so amazing about crafting, because these products are only meant to complement the stuff that you have, not to like set aside all your old stuff, right? Bring everything in, mix it all together, and you're gonna get a beautiful result in the end. So as always, thank you guys so much. I want to give a huge shout out to my team at Ranger as well. They do such an amazing job of organizing it and making sure everything is here on time, everything is in its packaging, and they do, such a great job at organizing. So thank you to everyone at Ranger. Huge shout out to them. They do such a great job with this line. All right, guys. Thank you everyone so much. I'm going to end the live here, but I will definitely see you guys all over social media. I'll be sharing little reels, Instagram videos, and I know there are some amazing designers that we sent this product to, and I simply cannot wait to see what they create as well. It really is so cool when we send this product out into the world and seeing what the designers make with it, and in a week or two when you guys receive your products, seeing what all of you guys create with it. It's truly amazing and so inspiring. Thank you guys. I'll see you all soon. Bye.